April 3rd, 2026 was a sad, sad day. A day of mourning, a day of loss. I said in my last video that it was a quiet one and that usually it won't stay quiet when there are sabotages, and boy was I right. But for once, the sabotages were actually not the reason this was a sad day. Oh no, I was the reason. I messed up, and I've let you all down. We started off the stream this week on Chapter 19, which is an interesting chapter. I don't remember much about this one other than the fact that Naesala can basically rip anyone in your team's eyes out, and to get rid of him you have to get his attention with one of the new birds, and then simply have him talk to Rayson. It's not a requirement to clear the chapter, the objective is actually just defeat boss, but he stands right next to the boss quite menacingly and will rush you down when you get in range. Also, for the first time in the series, we see ballistas, which are going to be quite a problem for our flying units, especially my Rayson, and if I choose to bring him, Tanith. Other than that, the only major objective in this chapter is the very valuable night ring that you can get. If somehow you manage to talk to Naesala with one of the hawks and get him to then talk to Rayson without killing any of the ravens on the map, then Naesala will give you the ring. This ring basically gives any unit in the game the Canto skill when you equip it, letting you treat them as a mounted unit. Obviously, this would be incredible on Braum if I could get it, but without the proper coordination with your team, it's nearly impossible. And I know no one is really going to try for it, only for it to be put in my Rayson's inventory. But that aside, this chapter is a relatively straightforward one. We start off our preparations with some inventory management, and we get moving. This chapter is probably one of the most direct ones we've played so far. There's only one path that goes up and to the right and straight into the boss, so we start to move that way, competing for kills along the way. Jay starts us off by summoning 2 waves of reinforcements and letting them loose on the map. They make a beeline straight for the ravens and will eventually kill one, meaning that our side objective is nullified. I take Braum and Kieran straight up the middle, and Braum does a lot of great work annihilating some of the Myrmidons in the middle and clearing the path for the rest of the team to move. Kieran also moves in there pretty unhindered. Jay and Speedy clean up a couple of kills here and there, and the path ends up being clear into the boss. The second wave of Tanith's reinforcement makes its way up the left side of the map, baiting Naesala away from his position in the top and middle of the map. This would be pretty dangerous normally, given the fact that now Naesala could get in range to attack our units, but since he went all the way to the left, he's pretty much out of reach, clearing the map for the rest of our units to attack the boss. I immediately see an avenue and go for it, noticing that between Kieran and Braum, the kill is pretty much guaranteed here. I let Braum go first since he's actually higher level than Kieran and has been seeing a lot of action, and Braum ends up proccing Adept and just straight up annihilates the boss. And that was that. We cleared this chapter in like 4 turns, and since we had animations off, it was pretty efficient. Braum won the MVP of the map for the 3rd map in a row, and I even got a chat MVP vote for my efforts on this map because, honestly, a general doubling and killing a Swordmaster in 1 round is a pretty sight to behold, let's be real. Chapter 20 was next, and this is an iconic chapter, called Defending Talrega. You have to arrive at the point within 20 turns, and standing on it is Jill's father, Shiharam. Of course, I bring this up on stream, but one of my very, very early sabotage ideas actually involved this map specifically. If we had had Jill in our party, I would have been able to have her talk to her father, because if she does that, she will actually leave the party and defect to the enemy side unless she has an A support with Leith or Mist. It would have been an actually hilarious and genius sabotage if it ever came to it, but of course, like we discussed in the last episode, Jill never really got the option to be recruited, and so here we are. Otherwise, this map, like the one before it, is rather straightforward. There's only one true path up to the boss, while a bunch of wyverns fly down over the mountains to attack you. But otherwise, the map is pretty honest, and aside from a couple of villages, there isn't much of note. In the preps, Speedy gets ready to recruit Khalil here, who is actually a decent mage by Path of Radiance standards and can do well with siege tomes. Between her and Ilyana, Speedy is really advancing the mage meta in the absence of his Oscar being able to do anything. The chapter starts with us taking 2 different formations. Speedy and Jay take the top area, and I decide to go down the bottom. The top has a bunch of enemies, but I guess they wanted the village and went for that. It's also where the majority of the wyverns are going to fly down the mountains and attack, meaning that there will be a good opportunity for EXP here. As usual, Jay opens the map with reinforcements as he slowly inches towards the enemies with Ike, Tanith, Tormod, and Mordecai, while Speedy dashes ahead with Morim and Oscar. I rush south with Kieran, Braum, and Leith. Honestly, I opted not to bring Race in this map because I was worried about his survivability, especially since there's still Sabotages on board. But looking back at it, it would have probably been a better idea to further boost Braum and Kieran, but oh well, hindsight is 20/20. For some reason, the enemies in the south give me some trouble and wall off my progression for a bit, so my advance towards the boss ends up being slower than I'd like. This is also a good time to take a minute to talk about the Tanith reinforcements. When we initially did the draft, I don't think we really thought about their impact on the actual maps, but more so how their kills would count towards points and objectives. I think we can all agree that one player all of a sudden having 6 more units on the map that can contribute towards your point total is kind of unfair, even if they can't be directly controlled. And these reinforcements are incredibly disruptive to map progress. It's actually frustrating. Whenever you think you've moved into a good position to set up for enemy phase or start doing something on player phase, they take their turn and move in to mess that up. In addition to that, having 6 meat shields on the map also ends up taking the enemy attention away from our army and relieving a lot of pressure. In a normal playthrough, this would be a good thing. You make the maps easier and have a better time clearing them. It's why Tanith is such a valuable unit in addition to her just generally good base stats and combat power. But in a co-op setting, that's kind of the opposite of what we'd want. As a viewer, you want us to struggle and watch us dealing with the multitude of obstacles thrown at us, and I think this chapter demonstrated all of what I just talked about. Being summoned in the top left corner, they mowed down basically half the enemies up there while keeping the majority of the wyverns flying down at us completely distracted. These enemies are normally a hindrance, especially in this co-op setting where our units actually are not strong as they would usually be, and so they made this map completely safe while also depriving a lot of Speedy and Jae's units from gaining that valuable EXP that I wasn't even competing for. But I won't deny that they were also annoying from my perspective in that towards the end of the map, they started to fly towards the boss and the enemies over there, stealing kills and setting themselves on tiles that I wanted to put my units on. It is actually pretty frustrating, and that Falco Knight with the Silver Lance does a lot of damage and one-rounds a lot of things, so out of curiosity I looked up the stats and it actually has 17 strength and 24 speed, which is basically the same base stats that Tanith, who is a level 10 Falcon Knight on arrival, comes with. At this point I mentioned that this was starting to feel kind of broken, but we left it as it is for now. The damage was already done on this map after all. Eventually, we all made our way up to the boss, and Jae stood right in front of him, blocking anyone else from getting the kill. He chipped at him with Tanith, which actually ended up setting Speedy up perfectly for kills with Siege Tomes. He threw a meteor at him with Khalil, who ended up landing a crit which one-shot Shiharam to death, opening the path for Speedy to get the objective with Oscar and end the map. This ended up being a pretty bad map on my end from a productivity standpoint, and I really didn't do much here, though Kieran somehow did end up getting map MVP, and I think for the first time in this entire run, Speedy actually got a chat MVP vote for his long-range shenanigan kill with Khalil. And then comes Chapter 21. This is a chapter that I honestly don't really remember that well. Enna is the boss here, and it's the first time we're fighting a dragon, which is tough. There's also some random mini-boss general dude with a Brave Lance and the Wrath skill at the top. There are a bunch of sleep staff bishops around that can be annoying, and the map also has a bunch of treasure in the rooms at the periphery of the map. One thing of major note that happens here is that Jae decides to toss all of his bonus EXP into Tor mod. He had over 800 bonus EXP, and with no one else to use it on, he decides to go completely for the promotion. At this point in the stream, Tormod had already gotten a decent amount of EXP, taking him from level 10 to 12, and so these last 800 bonus EXP that Jae threw into him managed to get him all the way to 20. In this episode alone, Jae has gained 20 points from leveling up Tormod, and spoiler alert, when he promotes later on in the chapter, that would be an additional 7 points that Jae gains. Another fun thing that Jae's been doing is that he's been using up the forges in the last couple of chapters to create a series of weapons called the Sticks. The Stick 1 was a nice little slim sword that went on AIK with max crit and normal might, and now we have the Stick 2, a slim lance with high crit. Very nice. I hope he keeps this up for as long as he possibly can. While setting up positioning on the map itself, I actually decided I'm gonna grab some of that treasure up there. And I recognized that Leith didn't really have a great contribution on the last map, so I bring Braum and Kieran, my usuals, I bring Rayson back in for the dance, and then I bring Soth. who has been so instrumental in securing treasure for the team in the past that I think it would be nice to bring him to get some stuff here. Otherwise, that's all for the prep phase, and we get the chapter started. The opening that we do with our units is starting to be rather predictable now. Kieran starts at the front, Braum and Rayson towards the back for the dance and boost, Jae opens with Tanith flying up and waits to reinforce this time, and Speedy gets as far as possible with Oscar and his infantry units. There are 2 roads in this map that you can go down at the beginning. You can go upwards and around, or straight to the left and into the middle. I decided to split my units into 2 groups. I dash to the left with Kieran and up with Braum, Soth, and Rayson. Kieran somewhat gets held up on the bridge simply because of the enemies with 2 range. This is something that I'm starting to realize is going to get annoying. In Path of Radiance, most enemy units do not get reliably one-rounded with an unforged hand axe, and most infantry enemies can usually survive a turn against even a forged melee weapon like the steel axe. In a game like co-op, this is going to be an issue for the person in first place, since when you go last, you won't be allowed the chance to finish off these kills and gain the EXP or get the kill points. You need to one-round if you're in first place, or you're going to be in trouble. And I think that's going to be the theme moving forward. I don't know what the solution to this is going to be. Maybe I'll have to rely on Rayson more during player phase, but it's happening already. While I'm trying to get to the middle of the map, Kieran gets hit with a sleep staff by one of the bishops, and now he's going to be out of commission for the next 5 turns, which really sucks. So instead, I turn my focus towards the top of the map for the time being and try to compete with Braum. Jae has summoned reinforcements at this point who are hot on our heels, and Speedy is up there too, which means the number of kills I'm going to get here is very low. So instead, I just decide to go for the treasure with Soth and try to get Braum to catch up with the rest of the group that is now extending into the final parts of the map. I managed to snag an energy drop from one chest and a talisman from the other before the enemies start to really come in from behind us and I have to run away with Soth. But before I'm really able to do that, Speedy notices that Rayson is lagging in the back with a group of enemy axe users right behind him, and he decides to use his 3rd and final sabotage to send Rayson to his death into that group. If this is starting to sound familiar, that's because it is. At this point, all 3 SpeedyHawk sabotages have been used on me in an attempt to directly kill my units. The first sabotage was used on Boyd in exactly the same way to send him into a group of units very much like this one, and he died from it. The second sabotage was used on Kieran to try and get him killed by the Black Knight, ultimately resulting in Zehark's death as I had to sacrifice him to keep Kieran alive. And now, this 3rd sabotage goes directly to try and kill off Rayson. The enemy phase comes, and with 2 out of the 3 axe users being able to one-shot Rayson, I don't really feel great about this and kind of figured he'd die. I'd made my peace with this after all when I recruited him, and they've been teasing the fact that they want to sabotage Rayson for a while. The first fighter moved in towards him, and Rayson dodged. The warrior then moved towards Rayson, and he dodged. The second fighter at the end goes for Rayson, and Rayson dodges, which wasn't really necessary, but I mean, call him Neo here, because he's out here dodging whatever's thrown at him like it's the Matrix. With Rayson surviving, Speedy's got egg on his face and he's definitely demoralized, and I think he's burned all bridges of any sort of cooperation that might be possible between he and I. I mean, 3 out of 3 sabotages on me, that's unforgivable. This map also has Tauroneo in it, who is the next point of contention. Ike can recruit him and Jae has Ike, so this seems like a pretty high opportunity that it's actually going to happen. Ideally, I don't really want Jae to get access to another pretty strong unit. Tanith is already starting to snowball a little bit, and her reinforcements are being very annoying. And Tauroneo is actually pretty good overall, just underrated in normal runs because of his lack of efficiency and movement. He honestly has pretty great bases and great tankiness, and while he won't one-round anything initially, if he gets into resolve range, he can do some serious damage. I was debating killing him here myself, and I guess so was Speedy because he kind of teased doing it with siege tomes. Lucky for us, Ike actually gets put to sleep and gives us a few turns to take care of it. And oh, what a number of turns it would be. I start by rushing down with Braum. I mean, the man's got 18 speed and 26 defense. I'm not scared of Tauroneo at this point. But I accidentally end up standing in spear range. This was a genuine accident. I didn't actually check the movement ranges and I didn't want to bait him over just yet. And so on enemy phase, he comes over and hits me for 8 damage. Now I'm staring him down on player phase, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, I can't exactly back down, so I decide to attack him. I reviewed the options, and I decided to chunk him down to exactly half HP with the Brombastic. This is where the first thing went wrong. Brom activated Adept and hit him a third time, which now brings him into resolve range. If I did not activate Adept, he would be exactly 50% HP, he would not be in resolve range. While I was doing that attack, I also noticed that Tauroneo does 8 damage and has a 6% crit chance, and so that would leave me with 25 HP, so I assumed I would be safe at the time and I could survive a crit. You can even see me looking at the knights around him to make sure that no one else can damage me before I went for it. This was my second mistake. I failed to account for resolve. But it's fine, since even after resolve, he still doesn't double me. This is where I made my third mistake. I stood my ground alone. If I had retreated, even for just a turn, I could have had Kieran right behind me, who easily could have finished the kill on Tauroneo and prevented this whole situation from happening. But for some reason, I didn't. And so what is the situation that I just talked about? Well, yeah, see, he just goes for range.
Oh! Holy fuck, bro. I wonder what the crit rate was.
On enemy phase, the most tragic thing that could have possibly happened in this run happened to me. Brom got crit by a resolved Tauroneo and died. He was just completely annihilated. To put things into perspective, Brom was the MVP of this run for me. The heart and soul of my team, not Kieran. Prior to this map, Brom had gotten 3 direct MVPs that only Kieran had gotten one of in the last one. Honestly, if I'm being serious, Kieran was actually bait for the other two to waste their sabotages on to neutralize so that Brom could be the super carry of the run and take over from there. The stat boosters I just got with Soth were going to Brom, not Kieran. And in the blink of the eye and with such low odds, it happened. I lost my mascot, my main man, the leader of my team and the big project of this run. And yes, I mentioned the odds. I'm going to get into them in a second, but I'm going to wait for that because right after Brom died, they didn't even give me a chance to mourn. Nothing, not even a second. Jae immediately invokes his sabotages to beat me while I'm down and tosses Kieran, who had Race and Rescued, into the range of a Resolve boosted Tauroneo. Now let me do some math for you. Resolve boosted Tauroneo has 33 strength and was using a spear that had 12 might. That's 45 total attack. Kieran's no slouch. He's got 22 defense and is equipped with an axe and has 44 HP. But even with all that, and after weapon triangle advantage, Tauroneo would double him and do 22 damage per hit, which would straight up kill even without a crit because of Kieran's 44 HP. Now, I'm hyper aware at this point because, Brom just died, my senses are elevated to a maximum, and I immediately recognize this. Even before Speedy said it, he said I would have to sabotage with a Siege Tome to kill Tauroneo with one of Speedy's units. And Jae realizes that, and he said he's actually willing to sabotage me to force me to use my sabotage. And so that's exactly what happened. The sabotages neutralized each other, Jae throws Kieran in there, and I sabotage Speedy's Khalil to kill Tauroneo. Now, this is a little bit of an odd circumstance because I generally like to keep score of who kills what units, but this is an iffy one. We generally don't count attempted murder because if it's unsuccessful, then it doesn't count. But what about self-defense? Jae technically started it by forcing me to save Kieran. He threw him into range of Tauroneo and he would die. My sabotage to kill Tauroneo was a direct retaliation to neutralize Jae's initial sabotage. So who gets the blame for this? Are you going to blame me for killing Tauroneo? Are you going to blame Jae for the death of his own unit because he sabotaged mine and forcing me to kill the unit? Or are we going to blame Speedy because technically his Khalil killed Tauroneo? So does he get the blame for this one? I'm kidding about the last one, but this is kind of iffy ground. I already got punished for walking into Tauroneo's range. My Brom died to him because of an accident. Does Jae get the blame for this as a direct kill, and am I allowed revenge for my Braum dying because his unrecruited unit committed an atrocity on me and lost me 25 points? He didn't even have to pay a Sabotage for me to lose the 25 points for his unit killing mine. Anyways, all of this to say, I think it doesn't count as anything. I think this is just a strong enemy unit that killed one of my units because of a mistake, and we leave it at that. And regardless of the situation, I was able to sabotage Khalil, kill off Tauroneo, Kieran and Rayson survived, and then the Holy Guards ruined my attempt to keep Khalil exposed, and they tank some hits, and the chapter goes on. But at this point, it's only chapter 21, and we have no more sabotages on the board between now and the endgame, which actually means that my Kieran is going to be allowed to run rampant and unopposed until the end of the game if I want him to. I can overextend without fear of sabotage, and now my Rayson can also have some more liberal use without fear. But if you were to ask me, I'd have rathered I lost anyone else and kept Braum. I literally went to bed depressed, I woke up depressed, I'm still depressed writing this script now, and me voicing over this and making this video is causing me to be depressed. So because of this depression, I had to do all of this number crunching to figure out what the likelihood of this happening even was. To keep it simple, let's start with the Rayson sabotage to put things into some perspective. Speedy threw Rayson into range of 2 fighters and a warrior, 2 of which would right out one-shot him, and 1 that didn't. This meant that for Rayson to survive, he needs to dodge those 2 specific attacks. Rayson has a base 62 avoid, and one of the warriors has 100 hit, the other one, the fighter, has 97 hit. This gives them a 38% hit rate and a 35% hit rate respectively. In true hit, because this game operates on 2RN, that's 29% and 25% true hit rate. The odds of both of those missing at the same time is a 53% of Rayson dodging both hits combined. That's what the math comes out to. To simplify it, this means that he has a 47% chance of surviving that turn, which is honestly a little bit lower odds than a coin flip. And so Rayson won a coin flip, a 50-50. That was really low odds of him surviving. So let's look at Braum dying. Here's what exactly needed to happen. Tauroneo would have needed to be having Resolve active. If he didn't have it active, none of this matters, which means he needs to be below 50% HP. My weapon did exactly 50% damage, so this takes us to condition number 1, which is Braum activating Adept. He has a 21% chance of activating Adept, so across 2 hits, that's about a 37% chance of it activating. Not terribly low, but it is a 1 in 3. It's lower than the coin flip that Rayson just won. If he doesn't activate Adept, even with a crit, Tauroneo can't kill him, since the crit would do 24 damage on my 25 HP. Sure, Jae would then have a sabotage to try and kill Braum, but I would have immediately jumped on Khalil frame 1 to save Braum. The second condition is that Tauroneo needs to crit to kill Braum. Without a crit, Tauroneo only does 17 damage, which leaves Braum with 8 HP. He has 18 total crit chance after Resolve, against Braum's 8 luck, so a total crit chance of 10%. That's not that high. After factoring in hit rate, because hit rate rolls first before crit, it's about a 9% chance of him landing that critical hit that turn, and so we have 2 pretty low odds. A 37% chance of Adept, and then a 9% chance stacking on top of each other. So what's the likelihood of both happening, you might ask? It's a 3.8% chance. That's it. That's the probability of Braum dying this turn. A freaking 4% chance, and it happened. So yeah, everyone who was yelling at me in the chat saying it wasn't safe, you were right, but it was pretty damn low risk overall, and it's 14 times less likely to happen than Rayson surviving. And yet, Lady Luck favored Rayson today. Clearly, I mean, he's got 17 luck and Braum has 8, so it's over double. But I digress. My Heron boy better pull his weight in this run is all I'm saying to compensate for Braum's death. But there's no compensating. The goat has died. So at this point, I'm frustrated, I'm pissed, I'm annoyed, and the Holy Guard is being annoying, and I started to roll out the discussion about the Holy Guard, because honestly, this is starting to get a little bit out of hand. I propose that the Holy Guard should be banned, or we should do something about it. Jae then raises a good counterpoint about Tanith's draft value being largely supported by the Holy Guard being a thing. But I actually think Tanith is a pretty damn good unit just on her own merit. The Holy Guard take away from our units in a run like this, which is my argument, and if anything, you don't earn points from them. My argument is also that it does trivialize the map and makes the viewing experience not as interesting, and it slows down the game. They're just too dominant. Speedy, being a little bit of a third party and the voice of reason, says, you know what, let's put it to a chat vote. And I think that's very fair. I think the chat is the viewers, they're the ones who are experiencing this content. They're going to be the most impartial, even though each of them is taking a side in who they're supporting in this conflict. And so the choices were 1, leave it as it is, 2, limit it to just 1 reinforce per map, or 3, ban it completely. And the chat voted to limit it to 1 reinforce per map, which I think is a fair medium, I suppose. But I'm interested in hearing you guys, the ones who watch these recaps, and the ones who are not able to come to the streams, what do you think? What would you do in this scenario? I'm clearly biased, so I shouldn't voice my opinion, or my opinion shouldn't be taken as it is, but I'm interested in hearing the opinion of the masses. Anyways, after all of that excitement, the dust settles and the rest of the run goes off pretty much without a hitch. I rush Kieran into the room with a bunch of mages and probably underestimated how much damage they do, but he killed all the melee units on enemy phase, and at the very least, since he was in wrath range, he was able to crit them. After that, I killed a mage and retreated to heal. Enna is a problem, since I can't one-round her and Rayson is far away. But I kinda just gave up at that point, and I put Kieran to enemy phase her, and one of the other two could finish her off for all I care. Lucky for me, I guess, Kieran actually crit her with Wrath, so I did get the kill credit, but then Jae, since he goes first, is able to get to the seize point for the chapter clear points, and unfortunately I can't even get those. I'm gonna have a bit of a problem competing for objectives now as well, that I've lost my primary Juggernaut, so this honestly kinda sucks. The stream ends with me getting my 4th -25 of the series so far, taking me to a total of -100 overall for 4 unit deaths. I don't think I've ever had this many negative points so far. The total points at the end are still me in first place with 189 points, Speedy in second with 129 points, and Jae is still in third, but barely because he's surging in the ranks thanks to 27 points from Tormod alone and a total of 44 points this stream with 120 points total. He's only 9 points behind Speedy. He's cut his lead to 9 points, single digits. I know Speedy's been starving for forges, but given how Jae is playing and his improved execution with Tanith, I expect he'll actually overtake Speedy in the next episode. I also did the kill counts as I usually do, but I never really present those numbers here. But this time I will, because we discussed the oppressive nature of the Holy Guard. I ended the stream with 41 kills, Jae ended with 25, Speedy with 20, and the Holy Guard had 17. For an AI that randomly rushes in, they almost had as much as a human controlling their own team, and I think that's probably a big enough indicator. They are really strong. And my 41 kills aren't going to stay as they are. I just lost one of my primary enemy phase juggernauts in Braum, so that number is definitely going to go down. Anyways, from here on out, it's pure Fire Emblem. There's no sabotages, there's no fear. I just got to play optimally for this stretch of the final 8 chapters of the game, and I have a feeling that it's still going to be pretty interesting. I've also done some thinking, and we might have to have someone fill the void that Braum has left. It might be the time for the return of an old friend. So thank you all for watching. I just wanted to let you all know that we're going to be going on a 2-week hiatus. Probably my fault because I'll be out of town on vacation, but the streams will resume on April 24th, and the recaps will come back on May 1st. Until then, I'll have some other videos to fill the content void, some of it Fire Emblem and some of it Mega Man related. So stay tuned, give my Mega Man videos a chance, and I'll see you all in another video very soon. Peace.